Welcome to World Events in the Bible. I'm Brandon T. Ward. Hey, we got another question. This time, this one is from Shannon. She says, how close do you think we are to the deadly wound? And she added, it's not a fair question, but that's all right. Everybody's excited with everything that's going on in the world. It's a very scary time for many people in the world, but those who know Jesus Christ, it's kind of in a way, it's kind of comforting because you see what's going on in the world and you can compare that to Bible prophecy and see where we're at. So it's a very exciting time in that regard. But let's talk about it. There's a lot of stuff that has to happen before the deadly wound. Everybody usually kind of just jumps to that one. Hey, the deadly wound, And it's because so many people are excited. The world is kind of a crazy place, not just because of the affairs that are going on right now today, but the affairs have been going on for the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, it just keeps getting worse. Morality declines. But not to get sidetracked here, there's some other things that has to happen before the deadly wound. So we're just going to jump through them here a little bit. We've documented all this stuff thoroughly in a Bible study that we have on our website. The study is titled The Timeline of the Tribulation. So check that out. It will answer hopefully every one of your questions, and it has all the Bible documentation in there as well. So, but let's look at this, what has to happen here. In Revelation 13, there's this global order, okay? This global order, and it's symbolic in the form of the beast that's described there in Revelation 13. So you have to look at that beast in Revelation 13 and see how it aligns with the beast in Revelation 17, the heads there, or they're called kingdoms. And the King James Bible kind of changes. It says kings and then it's kingdoms. It is the same thing, okay? That's what we're talking about, is kingdoms. And if you keep going down there in Revelation 17, the angel is providing, the interpretation of this vision, basically. And he says that 5 of the kingdoms have fallen, okay? 5 of the kingdoms have fallen, and then there were 7 of them, right? So then that means if 5 have fallen, we're already in the 6th. And what you'll find out, you have to take this revelation along with the book of Daniel, and you'll find out that these are 5 kingdoms, actually, the ones that have fallen, and they've existed all throughout history. They rose one in succession to the other. The first one was Babylon, and so on, okay? So the 6th kingdom exists today, but it's not yet complete. And when we say the 6th kingdom, well, what does that really mean? Like, what is the 6th kingdom? It's the current global structure. That's the best way I can phrase it for you, okay? The current global structure. And we saw that structure made tremendous strides in the mid-1940s with the formation of the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank are just a few of the big names that you recognize, but there's tons more different organizations that are part of global government. It's obviously not absolute yet, but it is in the works, and it's the basis of our world today. And who funds those organizations? The nations of the world fund the United Nations. If it was not for the United States that provides 30% of the United Nations budget, there would be no United Nations. Okay, and I'm not just picking on my own country here. It's other nations of the world. I mean, all the nations just about are pitching into the UN kitty here and going along with their UN Agenda 2030, substantial development goals and all this stuff, okay? So it's our nations that actually want that. I know that our leaders don't say that, but when you donate to a cause, that's what you're doing. You're helping that cause along, okay? If you don't believe in abortion, you're not going to donate to abortion, right? Of course. All right, now Daniel 8, if you jump down there, you have to understand Daniel's vision about the ram and the goat. Okay, this is something else that has to happen. So the first thing, we need to see the completion of that 6th kingdom that we talked about. We need to see a new world order. That's the key word people probably are looking for right there. But there's his vision of the ram and the goat. Now the ram, I believe, is symbolic of Iran, okay? And the goat would be the current global structure, Western powers, this sort of thing. But I think it's fair to say the current global structure, because you have Russia that's on board with that, China that is on board with it. They're a part of the UN, the IMF, all this stuff like that, all right? So what's going to happen? Is there going to be some conflict between the goat and the ram? And I always like to say conflict. Some people think war, and it could be, but the scripture doesn't say war. So let's just kind of be careful with what we're going to categorize it as. To say a conflict can be many things. It can be war. It can also be financial conflict. You see the United States is putting all kinds of tariffs and sanctions on Iran. That is a form of economic warfare. And you see the price as the global economy right now is tanking because of this coronavirus fear, which is being way overblown. And the price of oil is plummeting, right? I find that very interesting because Iran, 80% of their income comes from the price of oil. So if the price of oil is dropping, where are they going to get their income from, right? And then they have sanctions being put on them as well. So it's just crushing their country, just crushing it big time. So that potentially is a piece of prophecy right there that we're looking at. And it's a big one. It's a big one because the next thing that comes next is the goat, the current global structure, it's going to collapse. It says, Daniel says, his horn is broken. Okay? Horn symbolizes power. So his power is broken. What does that mean? Well, right after that event, the book of Daniel says there's 4 winds that are going to be unleashed on the earth. That should really pique your interest. And if you jump over to Daniel 7, he mentions the same 4 winds, which are the same 4 winds from Revelation chapter 7. Okay? When those winds are released, that means the sealing of God's saints has been completed. And there's 144,000 of those saints, and they are all tied to the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, if you keep reading Revelation 7, there's a multitude of other people that are standing before the throne of God, and they came out of the tribulation. So these are sealed too. The Bible doesn't specifically say that, but that's what's going on there, okay? So when those 4 winds are released after this conflict with Iran, then the sealing of the saints is complete, which means we're about time to there's going to be a lot more going on, okay? That's when you're going to see the 10 kings or the 10 clay kings. Daniel calls them the 10 horns, are going to rise to power. And that's going to be the completion of this 6th kingdom that we've been talking about. And that's why those saints have to be sealed. Because if you think the deception and the lies are tough right now, wait until these 10 kings and this new world order government is established and it is risen and it is on every news station across the world. And they're telling you this is the new way the world is going to go, and it's going to change everything. You're going to need to be sealed with God's word to understand, to be able to see through the lies that are going to be put upon you. Then we can talk about the deadly wound. Okay? All that has to happen first. And then we can talk about the deadly wound. What happens? What could be the deadly wound? It seems pretty clear. In the book of Daniel, those 10 kings, there's 3 of them that are removed by the little horn. And the little horn is Satan. If you want to call him the Antichrist, it's the same entity. He comes in, he appears because of this calamity that is going to happen. And apparently 3 of those kings caused the calamity, or he wouldn't have showed up to kick them out, because that's exactly what he does. And another precursor to this event, we know from the book of Luke chapter 21, is Jesus told us that when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, that you'll know that Satan basically is about to show up. And he gives credit to Daniel, actually, who we've been discussing. It says, when you see that abomination of desolation, get out of Dodge, get out of there, wherever you are, because it's big trouble that's coming. So, okay, all that there is the deadly wound and kind of what happens after the deadly wound. But 3 of the kings, those 10 clay kings, and then Jerusalem encompassed with armies. So we still have quite a bit that has to happen there. That could still take years. I mean, you don't really know. So don't rush prophecy. Don't rush the Bible. It's exciting enough to see what is transpiring right now. So let's just kind of try to take it all in stride and learn as much as we can. Keep praying about it for understanding. But where does that take us from where we are, right now? We talked about that goat's horn being broken and stuff. What could that be? What could that be? How about the planned financial collapse of the world? I mean, as it seems like what's going on right now to me, I wrote an article about that, titled that, The Planned Financial Collapse of the World. And it's just because this coronavirus doesn't make any sense that it would stop the entire world. It just doesn't make any sense. The seasonal flu in the United States of America kills 75% more people as of the recording this video than the coronavirus has. But we locked down our entire country, stopped all economic activity. Not in just our country, but around the world. Doesn't make any sense. There's something much bigger that's going on here. And then now you have all these players coming out of the woodworks. People like Gorbachev, a guy from Russia from back in the day. You have Henry Kissinger, who's been part of the United States government in official capacity many years ago, but has been always somebody kind of as a mouthpiece. And he's calling for a new world order. Both of these guys are. The United Nations is basically calling for a new world order again as well. And just a week and a half ago, they said we need to have a global ceasefire, end all the wars, so we can attack this coronavirus thing and figure it out. Okay, so all this stuff is not an accident. It's not happening by an accident. It's not some mistake. Not when you look at the entire globe. And that's what I always caution people too, is when these things happen, it's not just the United States that this stuff happens to. It's the entire world. Satan, the false Messiah, is going to come to appear to deceive the entire world, all right? So that's where we're at. That's what we have going on right now. And so let's just take it day by day. But you can check out that Bible study, The Timeline of the Tribulation. It will help you with a lot of this, and it takes you into the weeds on it. Okay, so check that out. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.